Thank you for coming to the Pocasset Village Association annual meeting. Our first subject is going to be a presentation by Laura MacLachlan from the Pocasset Water Quality Coalition on managing our stormwater runoff. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Keith Barber, who's the president of the Water Quality Coalition, to introduce our speaker.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Keith.
Thanks for letting us have some time out of your meeting. So, Pocasset Water Quality Coalition is 4 years old.
I'm sorry?
We were founded in 2019.
Oh, yeah.
So we have made some really progress that we're really proud of. We've been recognized by the rest of the nonprofits on the Cape who are trying to fix all of our problems that we caused ourselves as far as water is concerned. So I'm sure you are all aware, or if you're not, you should be, that the state is going to come out with new regulations for septic technology. So we're being told by our friends at the Conservation Law Foundation that these regulations are going to come out at the end of June. So there's already been one delay, but this whole process is in the courts, so there shouldn't be any more delays. So the simple answer to it is, and the line that I've used repeatedly, this is going to be really expensive for everybody, but it's much more expensive if we don't do it. Our water is in terrible shape, the marshes are in terrible shape, and it's all caused by nitrogen, which comes out of your septic system. And when the nitrogen goes into the ground, we have very porous soil here on the Cape, so what goes into the ground ends up in the water. This Title V was first invented in the 1990s, and the technology is so much different now than it was then that it's called IA Technologies, which is Innovative Alternative Septic. So there's a way to update it's possible you can retrofit your system if your property works that way. If not, you have to have a whole new system. And there's a tank that will be added. You have a tank underground, and you have a leach pit or leach field, so that this IA tank will go between the two. So what comes out of the house gets filtered through this tank, then it goes into the leach field. So what happens is this tank, which contains wood chips and ceramic chips, captures the nitrogen out of what's coming out, and it sends it back into your house, and it goes out through your bathroom pipe. So, Bob and I have been to a number of presentations. We've seen this work. There's a big project near Schubel Pond in Barnstable, which is in Marston Mills, and they got money from the EPA. They're converting 15 houses over to this technology. Schubel Pond has been closed for 3 years. You can't let your dog go in it. That's how bad it is. So the technology works, and in some cases it removes as much as 90% of the nitrogen. Probably 80% is a low point. So this is all coming down, and probably the biggest issue in Bourne is that if the state rules come as what the draft said, then there'll be a 5-year period where we all have to get this done. That is completely impossible. There aren't enough installers, there's not enough of the tanks, and not enough of the stuff that goes into the tanks. It's all happening so fast. So the alternative is that each town can apply for a watershed permit. The watershed permit lets the town decide the timeline in a 20-year span. So as opposed to all of us having to overpay for everything in 5 years, if the town does this correctly, in our opinion, then the 20-year timeline would more than likely be separated into cesspools, will be called immediate fail. Don't even call to have it tested, it's failed, and they'll have to be replaced. And our proposal to the state was that the timeline inside the watershed permit would be, the town could determine it, but what would happen is, within 500 feet of the water, you go first. 1,000 feet goes second. And these will be separated by years, and so on. So it'll keep going. So everybody on the Cape, public buildings, private buildings, businesses, condo projects, houses, everything has to be converted over because of the soil is so porous. If you live 10 miles from the water, which I don't even know that's possible, but let's say 5, you're going to have it done. There will be no exceptions. So, so one of our accomplishments that we're pretty proud of, I don't know if you saw this is in the Globe in January, and this was I'll leave it here so people can look at it. This was a full-page ad in the Sunday Globe that was sponsored by 9 different groups, and we were one of them. This is our logo right here. Our annual meeting is coming up on August 19th. It'll be at Martha's little PHIA building across from the boat ramp in Hen Cove. And we're very excited that Andrew Gottlieb, who's the director of Association to Preserve Cape Cod, he's going to be our featured speaker. And our Senator Sue Moran, who's a very strong supporter of us, she'll also be speaking.
This is a project that for a grant that is going in next Friday to a division of EPA called the Southern New England Project. And with that, I'm going to introduce the project manager for our grant, Laura MacLachlan from the Water Quality Coalition.
So my name is Laura MacLachlan, and I'm here because my mother was Christine McManus. She was one of the founders of the Pocasset Water Quality Coalition, and I'm continuing her work, and I'm really grateful to be here. So that's why I'm here. And the reason she did this work and why we do this work, right? My grandfather brought her here, and she swam in these waters, and they cohogged. Cohogs is such an important part of our family because it's the whole process, right? You're in the water, and you're harvesting them, and then you bring them home, and you're processing them, right? Which is a whole, just it's a multitude of steps to get them out of the shell and into a quahog, into a stuffed quahog or clam chowder, right? And in between all of that, it's all about this place and family. My grandfather, my mother taught me, my mother taught her grandchildren, my children. And so we continue these traditions that have started long before we were here. People have been harvesting food off of this land. And so I'm just curious if anyone would like to share why they love Pocasset. Do you have a memory of your family, of this place that you might want to share with us this morning? Yes, Sue.
So we have 3 sons. We moved in, we bought the land in '98, and we happen to just, every day, we feel grateful and lucky. Because when they were kids and we used to get stuck in traffic, they'd say, why do people want to come to Cape Cod? and before you know it, when Daniel was at Bridgewater, he was bringing all the kids, any kid who had a car, they could all pile in and come down to the canal and come down the area, and they get it now. And, Ken and I have talked about, selling the house or what we're going to do next, and they all said, we're not selling the house, because this is where they grew up. And they're 28, 26, and 24.
Yeah, it's the same thing. My son just came up from the Navy, and he's here. And my older son is, he's my family. I'm in 2 different places. I live in Vermont and Massachusetts. And so it's those traditions, right? Does anyone else want to share? I'm an educator. I practice wait time, even though I know Bob is over there like this. Oh, Martha.
I grew up with your sister and her, I knew folks. And I thought that what's unique about this environment is the generational aspect. It passes down, and that's some of the problems we have with cesspools because it stays in the family and it doesn't get turned over. But I can remember the grandparents and great-grandparents of the people I grew up down here, and they were the original founders in the 1900s, early 1900s. And now I'm seeing their great-grandchildren, and grandchildren of my generation. So it's very special in that respect.
Yes, it's a really beautiful place, and we are really blessed to live here. So this is some of the things that we've talked about, and it is this place that is so beautiful that we celebrate, and what we're here to talk about, and the fact that, unfortunately, because all of us love to come here, and now the population has increased, we do have some challenges that we need to face. And so this is the built landscape, right? And this is the piece where Keith was talking about earlier. A lot of what Pocasset Water Quality Coalition has been focused on is policy, and now we're shifting our work into infrastructure, into actually doing things, physical things for the area. And so one of the places that, this may look familiar to some of you. Anyone who lives on Pocasset, this will look very familiar. So this runoff that Bob was talking about earlier ends up because it wasn't designed for how we're living today. And so we're going to try, hopefully, to mitigate some of these pieces. And so this is the actual one of the locations that we'll be focusing on. This is the intersection of Park and Circuit. So this is where one of those rain gardens will be going that Keith was talking about. Bob was talking about. And so this is what we're applying for. It's the Watershed Implementation Grant. And so we did a letter of intent. We were accepted. And so now we're on the finishing ends of June 16th. We need to put our full proposal in. And so we've been collecting letters of support from local organizations. We're really trying to make this be a whole concerted effort is what's going on here. But this is something, SNEP, the watershed grants, they've been working to protect this whole watershed area. And that's what we're talking about in the bottom left here, which is really interesting. I did not realize it started in Worcester. I don't know if anyone else knew that, but the Blackstone River is actually empties out into Buzzards Bay. So that's that whole region that we're talking about. So the reason we're doing this, obviously, is these are our visions and goals, and so it is for all of us in the southern New England area. The thriving watersheds and natural lands, obviously sustainable communities, right, for families and nature, just like it says in the mission. And we're trying to build collaborations and engage all stakeholders in action. This is a doing project, and we are actually looking for hands and feet to help. This is just an overview of what we're doing, this impact model. So you can just take a glance at this. I won't go over it in depth. And we will be sharing a copy of these slides if anyone wants to know more information. The blue is what the funds from the grant are going to be going towards. And then the yellow is a lot of the volunteer work that we'll be doing. Does anybody have a question?
If anybody has trouble getting to sleep, we'll share a full copy of the proposal when it's ready.
Yeah.
Next Friday.
So
Yeah.
one thing to add would be that the SNEP, if we get the grant, it will be in September, October when we find out.
Yes.
All this won't happen until the spring of 2024.
That's when we'll start implementing. But we're doing a lot. Keith's doing a lot of background right now. He's reaching out to local companies for donations, and also he's been presenting to the board, because the select board that is, so that we have their support to do this. It is on public lands that we'll be doing these rain gardens.
So far, our biggest, we have volunteer people, but our biggest donation is from Mahoney's. We'll be getting all the plants for the rain garden. And
Yeah.
every time anytime I am in the public, I'm mentioning how great a job Mahoney's has done for us. So please support them.
Yeah.
So the town has approved they'll put it there?
So Keith can probably talk about this, but basically we had to ask if we could install these on public land, and then when they're completed, we donate them back to the town.
Yeah, because I just know what happened with poor Martha with
Yeah.
the whole fence thing,
Yes.
Well,
which was
We
ridiculous.
lessons learned.
Yes,
So I went to the select board on Tuesday,
okay.
and if you get the enterprise, the whole summary of that was in the enterprise yesterday on page 3. So what happens is we have to ask the town permission to do it on their property, and as a result of that, when the rain gardens are done, we donate them back, so they still are town property. We'll be managing them for as long as they're there, but there's no town workers involved in the actual labor. It's all donated time. Pocasset ladies have donated. The horticultural landscape department at Upper Cape, they're so excited to join it. I just brought the letter that they wrote. It's like, holy cow. I mean, they have a whole commitment to, green landscaping and fixing the infrastructure. And Nolan Leroy is the head of that department, and he's just a wonderful man. So,
Yeah, we're still looking for any donations of contractors or landscapers who've got something like a
Large
small
equipment.
backhoe to move the material. And we're trying to get
Skid steer.
donations of the material
Work too.
itself, but that's a work in progress for the coming week. So if you know of anybody, let us know and we will we'll bird dog them, chase them down.
Yeah, so just, again, Bob talked a little bit about this, but the single largest source of water body impairment, right? This nutrient contamination, that's what we're dealing with. In this image on the right, basically it's just an overview of what's happening, right? It's raining, and because of the built infrastructure, so we're talking houses and pavements, the water just runs off, and then it just filters into obviously the soils, and for us, our watershed, because we are blessed with so much water, the ponds, the rivers, and the ocean. And so, let me see. There we go.
Well, I have a question. A little aside. I always thought sand was a great filtration device, but here it's not pervious, so nitrogens go through. And a family had a little place in Maine with a well over here and a cesspool over here. And we always thought that a certain distance you were fine to drink the water out of the well. But that is different with nitrogen then and other toxins, for example?
So can you hold that thought? Because when I talk about the rain garden, it'll help explain how that process gets mitigated, unlike with land, with soil. So because we have the increased population, obviously the development, but just so you know, 8% of the total nitrogen load is from stormwater. That's a big amount. And the great thing about that is that we can actually fix that. We're able to fix that. So that's a big contribution that we can actually do low cost. That's the benefit of some of these green infrastructures like rain gardens. I got this pause going on. Then the other piece is the algae growth that obviously leads to the depletion of oxygen, which is what we have in all of our water bodies right now. And then obviously this impacts the fact that we can shellfish and tourism and obviously even property values. And so this is a win-win for everyone. So basically this is where we are, right? We're really in this part of negative situation where we have too much going into our...
Laura, can you just read some of the numbers?
Oh, sure. So basically we've got 100% here, and what's happening is some of it obviously evaporates, right? But because of the built environment, what's happening is, and this impervious surfaces, which again is like houses and pavement, it's getting run off and then it goes into our waters. Because basically, I mean, if you think about the situation, right, say if you talk about Park and Circuit, that water runs down the hill and right into Hen Cove. There's nothing to stop it from running into Hen Cove, right? And that's what we've got. That's our situation, right? Versus if we can start to shift towards this, which is what we were talking about, it's the trees and the plants that actually pull the nitrogen out of the water and they filter it. And that's how this is our ending goal over here, is where, because we'll have natural ground cover, we can talk about what some of those steps that we can do.
Just to interrupt again.
Yeah.
There's a specific list of plants that will do this. So, and thank goodness there's a lady at Mahoney's who is like a rain garden expert. So she has a list of plants and trees that will survive through the winter. They don't need as much maintenance. We're collaborating with the town on this, so our conservation agent, Stephanie Fitch, has a project going where she's trying to increase butterflies. Because butterflies pollinate, butterflies help the plants, and milkweed plants are a huge part of this. We have to have many milkweed plants in our rain garden because a lot of these plants have long roots, and the long roots go, as many as 3 or 4 feet down, and that's what enables the plants to suck out the bad stuff from the water.
Actually, at the end of this slideshow, there's a video that shows one in action and how the plants actually, when the rain is falling, they like slow down the amount of water and allow it to soak in. I mean, if you think about when we have a severe rainstorm, right? What happens? We get flooding. I mean, there's nothing we can do. The earth just can't absorb it that quickly. But if we have a gentle rain, we don't end up with those same puddles. And that's what a rain garden does, or even what lawns do, or pervious pavements do. That's what they do. They slow down and allow the water to filter into the ground. So
the new arrivals, there's plenty of seats up front.
yes.
Like church, I guess, So feel free to come on up.
And no one bites. No one bites. So again, this is just a close-up shot, again, of the fact that we have too much built infrastructure and we need to convert it. And we can do this together. And like Keith was saying, the win-win, honestly, is the fact that everything we plant in the rain garden actually is pollinators. They're native species. And so not only do we solve our stormwater problem, but we also solve our pollinator problem. So like, it's just the best way to go. I just put this slide in here because I just want to let you know that we are in support of these small municipal separate sewer system, otherwise known as MS4, requirements that Pocasset is responsible to follow. And that's actually how we picked the locations that we're using. So we're using the maps that the town they have to find some solutions for. So we're in support of them. So we do have we are backed up by the state and by the town, obviously, for what we're doing.
Just a little background on that MS4 permit. The town has a deadline to try to get all of the rainfall falling on a property to infiltrate on that property. That's the objective. It's never going to get to that, but the town now has a limit on how much impervious surface you can put on a lot. It can't be more than 30% of the lot. Other towns have even more strict ones. So they're moving in that direction for those 12 towns.
And so this is what we were talking, what you mentioned, Dick. So what ends up happening is there's actually there's a variety of plants that work with different, not only nitrogen, but also phosphorus, right? And then we have layers of different types of materials inside of that. So it's more than just sand. We actually have soil, we have rock, we have just different layers. So as it filters through, right? I mean, sometimes like the fish tanks used to have like those rock. Anyone have one of those, right? I actually have my own little mini one of these with my beta that I never changed the water. It never changed the water. I have a peace lily in it, and there's just a complete system in there because the waste coming from the fish is absorbed by my peace lily, and so I have a complete system. So I don't have algae, I don't have any of that. And so we're just going to do a big system like that. And what's really cool with this setup is like you can actually test this water. It can be 99.7% pure. So we can actually take samples of water going into this garden and then take samples of it coming out, and we can actually see the impact of our work.
We're going to do that in the grant.
We are going to do that in the grant. So this is what we're talking about. This is this overlay again. We talked about where we are and where we're going. This is where we are and this is where we're going. And so looking forward to this project. So these are the benefits of rain gardens and bioswales, and I'll just talk to you, I'll show an image of bioswales. The difference with them is bioswales are more, they're more grassy. They're not as focused on, they're usually longer and wider. They're used in like parking lots and things like that. But we'll be able to reduce the stormwater runoff and this groundwater recharge, right? Again, what you were talking about for the wells. This is what we'll be ending up doing, is recharging our groundwater. Again, increasing the pollinator food shed, obviously the biodiversity and natural habitat. We have species of plants and fish that can't actually live in these waters because of the algae, because the chemistry is not what the plants and the animals need. We'll obviously reduce the contaminants and then increase property value. which is important to all of us. And then mitigate, obviously, the impacts of global warming. I mean, all of us have seen what's going on with these fires that are coming down, the smoke and the particulates that's coming down from Canada. You know, it's a systems-based thing that we're working on here, and there's so many different layers, which actually is a really great thing, because then we can each have a little part of it and tackle the piece that's acceptable to us. And of course, this is an interesting one, decrease airborne particulates, again, because the plants are absorbing them instead of them being reflected off and into the atmosphere. So as I was saying, the bioswales are very similar. They end up capturing more stormwater, all right? So they tend to be like a channel. And so a lot of times, honestly, they're at like commercial locations, parking lots and banks and things like that. You'll notice that they create these bioswales that actually direct the water off of a parking lot and spread it out so that it can be filtered. So this is your part. This is where we're asking you to participate and help with us. So number one, we would love you to volunteer. We'll be building 3 of these rain gardens, and those will be on Hens Cove. And we're going to need lots of boots. So please join us. Obviously, you can install your own rain garden. So anyone who has a downspout, you can actually excavate some of that and make a small rain garden that will help process that instead of creating a nice ugly chute across your lawn, right? Where that water just rips up the grass that's in there. So you can do that. Again, replacing pavements. These are now happening more and more, where you can see the different types of pavements or the driveways where they have like the 2-track is what it looks like, right? And the rest of it is grass, because that enables the water not to run off, but to actually be absorbed into the earth. Rain barrels are another one. And I don't know if anyone's using green cones with their pest waste management. Is anyone familiar with that? I just put that up there. That's one of the other situations, is that we have a lot of people who obviously have pets, and the green cone enables us to actually compost it, and it becomes, use microbes and things like that. So that's an option. Obviously installing a bioswale, and those for us would be near the curb, so along the road. That's where you might install a bioswale. Mulching garden beds and planting trees and shrubs. And just to reinforce, we would love you to volunteer. That's going to be my big push. That's number one. And then, as Keith was talking about, we're going to go down to Mahoney's and buy some native and drought-tolerant plants. Watering wisely. So just keep this in mind for those of us or your neighbors who might have automatic sprinklers. You know, our lawns really only need 1 inch a week, so we can think about maybe we can put those on every other day or something like that. But that's one thing that we can think about, because I know that as I walk around Pocasset, I see a lot of runoff from sprinklers. And so that's an easy thing, that if we could actually slow down or stop that runoff, because obviously if it's running off, it's not watering your grass, then that's another way that we can keep these contaminants out of our watershed.
If you have sprinklers, even if you use a manual sprinkler or you use automatic sprinklers, before 8 in the morning, after 6 at night. If you're sprinkling or watering during the day, half of it's evaporating because the sun is up there just sucking it up. So you go by somebody's house with sprinklers on at 1 in the afternoon, knock on the door and say, "Hi, I'm here to tell you to knock it off."
That's right. And make sure you have your Pocasset Water Quality Coalition shirt on. The other one, obviously, as Keith brought up too, is the lawn maintenance, right? And I know this is difficult. We all want to have beautiful lawns. And they are. The green lawn is beautiful, but there are some things we can do. It just takes a little bit more work, obviously. And I have to tell you right now that my father put lime on his lawn, and I am shocked that man didn't get his Scott's 3-plan maintenance, because he's done it every year. But this is the first year he only put lime down. So if I can change his heart and mind, I hope I can change someone else's. So what I would like you to do, though, is I have paper, and Keith has pens, and I'm going to put this up here. These are all those steps that we just talked about, and I'm going to ask you to commit to one of these steps. So talk to your neighbor But I would really love it if you could write down something that you could commit to, or even start to maybe learn more about. That would be great. All right.
Are there particular types of trees or shrubs that are most advisable for benefiting this process?
There are. I don't know them. I'm not an expert. That's when I go to someone like Mahoney's or my husband who's got a degree in horticulture, but there are a specific list, and what we can do.
If you go to the website of Association to Preserve Cape Cod, which is APCC,
It's
they
linked.
have a whole link to all those things on it. They're a tremendous resource for if
So-
you're thinking about gardening or whatever. They have a great website.
This is at the end, and these links will all be live. So when we forward this slideshow out to you, this is a link right to the Association to Preserve Cape Cod. And this is that video that I talked about that sort of shows it in action, how that trickle-down effect happens, and obviously some more information. This is similar to what we're doing, restoring the Maidford River watershed. It's a story map of how that works, and Soak of the Rain, it gives you more information about some of those steps we just talked about. So that information is in here also.
Just a minute, this PowerPoint is going to be up on the Pocasset Water Quality Coalition website. So you'll be able to go through this again, and it can, those links will be live on that, and there'll be a PDF of that there, Laura, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can download it, or you can just see it on the website.
And our names are in here too. You can reach out to any of us and we can get you that information. And we can get you the list of trees, but there are specific trees, especially that will work with the fact that, as you notice, we have sort of like these drought areas, and then we're soaking wet, like it's going back and forth. And so we need to plant species that actually have the resilience to maybe slow down their growth in times of drought, and then obviously shift into growing when it does rain.
All perennials.
All perennials. Yeah, all perennials. Yeah. Yeah. I will say the Rosa rugosa is a good choice, so we'll say that. Your beach roses.
Oh, is it?
Well, they feed our pollinators. They're a local species. They're a great shrub, actually, to plant locally. Kathy?
This is, the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension has the pollinator pathway, and
Yes.
if I'm repeating something I just got late. And
No.
they have a whole project going up for the pollinator pathway, and there's all kinds of lists. So if you go to the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension, I think it might be part of Master Gardeners on there.
It is, yeah.
And they have all these lists of natives and pollinators that you can download.
Thank you.
If you're interested in being contacted next year when this project actually gets going and you want to help spread mulch or plant the plants, etc., or even come by later on and do a little bit of weeding until they get going, or frankly, if they start capturing all the trash that comes down on these streets, pick the trash out of the rain gardens. Just put your name down, and we're going to get a network going to maintain these things.
And with Barlow on Born TV, when we start putting the rain gardens in, Sue is going to video a lot of the work, and that'll get back up on their website and on YouTube, so you can refer to it there.
So I would love to collect those cards from you, if that's all right. And then, like I said, this is going to. So Keith, do you mind collecting those? And I'm just going to finish talking about a couple things and closing this out. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for your time this morning. I really appreciate you. You're a wonderful audience. We really appreciate your support, both financially and in person. And I look forward to actually getting to know you as we implement this grant, obviously in the spring. And learning of all your talents, because I'm sure there's a bunch of talents out here that we're not familiar with. But this is Keith, and obviously you probably have Bob's information, and this is mine. And then just again, for an update of what's going on with the grant, if you would like to join us at the annual meeting on the August 19th, that would be wonderful. And then, as I said, we have this list of more information. Keith took this beautiful picture last night. Because it really is a beautiful place that we live in, and it takes a village. Just like Pocasset Village can do this work. So thank you very much.
Laura, for